that pattern recognition, which is essential, which ultimately is using the two halves of the brain instead of just one side, and what I've often referred to in other works as symbol literacy. But never forgetting, you see, that this is ultimately an occult subject matter. Because actually, you know, I'm not an expert in anything. I don't hold any credentials from any university. You know, I haven't invented a semiconductor or put men on the moon or anything like that. So you can all relax, because there's no such thing as you know, a final word on any of this. We are here to discover and investigate together, to look at a very fascinating subject that is very much part of our own spiritual journey. I said in Bath, I talked, you know, 2 weeks ago in Bath, and I said there that this is certainly not infotainment, and it's not even food for the brain. That's not what this is about, my work. That might be true for other people, it's not true for me. This is ultimately about one's own spiritual development. You're here to discover who you are. And I believe this kind of information is, you know, essential to that process of self-discovery. That's what it's ultimately all about. Not egohood, but selfhood. And therefore, that's a journey which we're all taking. And on that type of journey, we should be open-minded. We should have the bravery to make mistakes, because mistakes are very healthy. Mistakes are good. And it keeps us humble to realize that we are evolving, and no one person's perspective, right? I said this is about gaining perspective. Well, really, no one person's perspective is the same as another. So I'm not a collectivist, and I'm not asserting any point of view. We're discovering together a fascinating subject, always bearing in mind that it is occult. And that means that you have to adjust your settings. It's not normal, it's not official, it's controversial. And it also means that it's a process, it's a journey of awakening, a journey of discovery. It's not declarative. What we're trying to look at is the occult underpinnings of the world, and ultimately of our own selves, how the world comes to be the way it is. We'll look at criminal conspiracies, given that we understand that there is such a thing, and try to understand why that comes about. And also try to deal with this consensus in the majority of people who don't believe that there is such a thing as a conspiracy, a global conspiracy. Why don't they see that, when I would imagine most people here can see it? Why is it that other people don't? What's with that? Why do they have that consensus? And secondly, other people say, hey Michael, you know, you've done symbolism in the past, you know, why are you doing it again, you know, 6 years later or 9 years later? Well, look around at the world. Has anything changed? I've been studying this subject since 1982. I did my first talks in it, you know, 9 years ago. But look at the world, look at television, look at the state of decay. Obviously, things didn't change when Michael Tsarion got up and said, hey guys, there's such a thing as, you know, occult symbolism in movies or whatever. You know, it doesn't stop. So obviously the work must then continue. One can't just 1 year or 1 month say, here's what I know, and see everything just continuing, and television programs and the whole matrix of control getting stronger, and be silent, you see. So as long as that pestilence continues, right, as long as that sort of psychic dictatorship continues, then you have to persist in helping point out to people that it does exist. And even though I said about making mistakes and always keeping an open mind to realize that you may be wrong. In fact, we have to always go about with the kind of mentality that says maybe everything I know is wrong. But at the same time, that's good to keep in the back of the mind, but in daily life we have to presume that we're right. I mean, when I do my work, I have to presume that I know what I'm talking about and I'm right, and you continue with that conviction and that optimism. Always bearing in mind that if you are going to be talking about conspiracies, try to focus on the facts. Try to be eloquent, try to be articulate, and then try to always, you know, base things on as much fact as you can. And which is why a lot of my work is really based on insiders. I go to the horse's mouth, to the actual works of the people who have either first-hand knowledge because they work behind the scenes. There's many names I could mention. And even to the memoirs and the letters and the writings of the establishment figures who've put this whole architecture of control into place. Try to, you know, stay close to their works. so that you have the facts, you have the proof. When you're talking about conspiracy, as I said, it's very important to be rational and focused and factual, because actually, if you go to the Collins Sociological Dictionary or any good sociological dictionary and look up the word conspiracy, it's a genuine sociological term, by the way. It's accepted that there are criminal conspiracies of all sorts. And these dictionaries say that, look, it's only reprehensible to talk about a conspiracy if it's delivered in some sort of bizarre, absurd, outlandish, or irrational manner, and obviously if it's delivered without any verifiable evidence. So please take note again of the sources that I mentioned, the books, the teachers, the philosophers, whatever. Follow them up. Like I said, we're all free to investigate together. Don't accept a word that I'm saying. Follow it up on your own time and look into the works that we share with you. And take on board those as well of the different teachers and thinkers that I present. That I think is also very crucial. And ultimately make it your own journey. A person who's a teacher is only really a guideline. He can draw a map, or he can show you a map, but he can't walk the countryside for you. So it's very active, it's very participatory. One has to realize fundamentally that it's not just mind food, brain food, intellectualism. It's something that's eminently important for the reason of why we're here. And those who've seen Architects of Control, the first lines we said in that, it was filmed right here in Jutterplatsen, and I said, the whole thing is about who am I, why am I here, and where am I going? And that's it. That's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. It's all about selfhood. Of course, we know where to go, don't we, when because they talk to people who do alternative work and say, oh, you're spurious, what you're saying, is not based in any fact, you're just a conspiracy nut. And yet, actually, where is it where there is just the bluster? It's on the mainstream. They should be looking and examining themselves for the nonsense that they talk, and the unfounded, ungrounded, utterly preposterous stuff that we hear daily coming from the official sources. So in fact, the great teachers that I've learned from, are in fact some of the wisest people there are. And they do know what they're talking about. It's in the mainstream where the problems arise when it comes to things like facts. And one of those great teachers, G. Edward Griffin, he actually says that conspiracy, one of the darkest words in the language of man, yet there is hardly a single page of history that does not partially reveal the deadly eye of conspiracy at work. It was a conspiracy that led Brutus against Caesar in the Roman Senate on the Ides of March, that plotted the betrayal of West Point by Benedict Arnold during the American Revolution, and that led to John Wilkes Booth's to the assassination of President Lincoln on Good Friday, 1865. The past record of man, he says, is burdened with accounts of assassinations, secret combines, palace plots, and betrayals in war. But in spite of this clear record, an amazing number of people have begun to scoff at the possibility of conspiracy at work today. They dismiss such an idea merely as a conspiratorial view. And I really recommend his work, by the way, especially this fantastic film he made, The Capitalist Conspiracy. It is available on YouTube. Again, make note of these great, great people, their great work. And sadly, I should probably even dedicate today's speech to Eustace Mullins, one of the great original teachers in this field, himself a disciple of America's greatest poet, Ezra Pound. The British politician Dennis Healy said it this way. He said that world events do not occur by accident. They are made to happen. Whether it is to do with national issues or commerce, most of them are staged and managed by those who hold the purse strings. So it's not coming from Michael Tsarion, it's not coming from Jordan Maxwell, it's coming from the top brass, who, by working maybe at a higher tier of the pyramid, the power pyramid, understand this and occasionally will let us know. It doesn't happen often, but it happens often enough that if you're a researcher and you gather this information,